OC Financial Media presents, in association with CHL Mortgage, bringing you the top business experts in Southern California, from LA to Orange County. Your host, Dino Katsiametis. It's about your real estate. It's about your money. From your estate to real estate, it's Money Matters with Dino.
Welcome to Money Matters with Dino, the most important hour of radio for Southern Californians every week. My name is Dino Katsiametis, and I want to thank you for joining today's conversation. Sounds like a bold thing to say, the most important hour of radio. But if you're listening right now, I guarantee that by the time this show is over, you will have learned something valuable. If you go to our website, moneymatterswithdino.com, you'll see the tagline, from your estate to real estate, where your money matters. That title basically sums up what our show is all about. It's about money, your money. My goal and purpose for this show is to educate you regarding your money. That can be anything from buying and selling homes to the stock market or even starting a business. How do I do this? I seek out top professionals in their marketplace, and I have them share their years of experience and knowledge with you. Why? Well, because money affects your quality of life. Think about it. Every financial decision you make today will affect your quality of life tomorrow. Decisions that will affect what neighborhood you live in, if your kids will be able to play an organized sport or even learn how to play an instrument. I know that sounds silly, but it's not. All these things cost money. Here's something I love to say, and you're going to hear me say it a lot. And this is coming from a guy that loves real estate. Don't just get real estate rich, get rich. And we're going to teach you how. I hope you enjoy the show. This segment is brought to you by Reverse Mortgage Educators. And guys, if you're 62 years or older, or if you have a parent or a loved one who's over 62 years of age, and they're not quite living their twilight years in the luxury that they should be, and they own a home, look into a reverse mortgage. I'll admit I was not a fan of reverse mortgages for so long, but I'll be the first to say it's because I wasn't educated on them. Since Reverse Mortgage Educators have been on the show, I have done my research and I am a fan of it now. It's not for everybody, but if you qualify for it and it works for your situation, it's a way to not live in poverty or live just on Social Security. Take a look at it, Reverse Mortgage Educators. If you like, you can also call me direct, and I will personally talk to you about some of your options. Phone number again is 949-720-1616. And also, I want to announce, as I have been on Money Matters with Dino, we have a new thing we're doing. If you want to know the value of your home, just text the word appraisal and your address to 313131. That's text the word appraisal and your address to 313131. And I'm going to have one of my trusted advisors get back to you within 24 hours. All right. We have an incredible show here this week. Real estate and the money from down under. So some of you are gonna have a hard time understanding the guests that we have on today because of their crazy accent, but others seem to really like it. It's the Australian accent, and one of the guys is from New Zealand, so I got to be careful because I guess they have a little thing going there where we're not quite Australian, and to us it all seems the same, but they're gonna tell you different. We have CEO of Harcourts USA. A real estate company that is all over the world, and Aaron's going to tell us a little bit more about it. But welcome to the show, Aaron Hodson.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for having me here. It's great.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about Harcourts and its history.
Well, we're obviously quite a large real estate franchise, founded in New Zealand in 1888. We now operate in 10 countries, and we have over 1,000 offices and about 15,500 residential salespeople. So things are going very, very well for us, and I think last fiscal year we were the 6th largest in the world on production.
And how long have you been in the U.S.?
We've been, as a franchise, 2 years. Me personally, 3.5.
So this is what I find interesting. I hadn't heard of Harcourts, and all of a sudden it started popping up everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I met you a while ago, and I started doing some research, and I realized how big they are everywhere else. And one thing I want to bring up is you've actually been really a moving factor in a lot of that, because you've opened up Harcourts in China, South Africa, Indonesia, and now here in the U.S. Mm-hmm. How does a person go to China and do you speak the language?
No.
Or any of these other countries for that matter, and create something as big as you have?
Hey, there's the philosophical side of doing things like that. I mean, I went to China and I spent 3 months with intensive language people trying to teach me how to speak Mandarin Chinese, and after 3 months I was told to stop because my accent was making me quite abusive. So I did obviously we've got good partners over there that do speak English, so there is that ability to be able to get through those situations. But it's like anything, if you know a product really, really works, doesn't matter where you take it, human nature is the same everywhere you go in the world. The natural want to own a home is the same. You've just got to make sure you understand what your product is and actually how you built your business, and don't deviate from it. I won't say it was easy. It took us 2 years just to get off the ground in China. The last 2 years has been exceptional. We've opened 148 offices, I think it is, in the last 12 months.
Wow.
In China. But obviously their numbers are a bit different, and that seems not like a lot when you look at Shanghai with 35 million people. So, but it's been great for us. But our challenge is sticking to what we know.
Well, a man with your accomplishments, I feel honored that you're here and talking about what's going on in Australia right now, as well as the globalization of real estate. So thank you for coming on. Okay. Andrew Ritter, CEO of Own USA. You've lived here in the States. You're from Australia, but you're seeing quite the opportunity now. You went back to Australia, raised a bunch of money, and you're basically coming here and you're buying up America. And I know you laugh when I say that, but you're going to be spending a lot of money here with the money that you've raised. You've started a company called Own USA, and tell us a little bit about what the mission of Own USA is.
Well, I guess very simply, the mission of Own USA was for investment in real estate, and real estate from an investment perspective, and looking at it rather than just buying of a home, which is an investment, but it's also a place where you're going to live. So there's a two-pronged part to that. But real estate as an investment, looking more on, well, what are the investments that we invest in as individuals? That'd be stocks, bonds, whatever it is. And real estate fundamentally is a very sound investment, and Australians believe in real estate as an investment. So looking at that, we're looking at, well, there's only so many places and so many areas where you can place capital for real estate, and then you've got to look at fundamentally where there might be opportunities for long-term future growth.
Now, what I found interesting last time we sat and talked, you educated me on what's going on in Australia, and it sounded basically a lot of like what happened out here in California in the gold rush days. You said that there's literally guys out there driving tractors. I think you called them something else, but in essence, they're tractors, and they're making $200,000-$300,000 a year mining and driving tractors.
Yeah, well, that's very true. The mining industry has had exceptional increase in wages, and then they're within certain components, but that has also had that has also slowed down. And what has been pushed with the Australian government late particularly is also the financial sector, because what many would refer to as the two-tiered economy. There was the mining economy, and then there was the financial services side of things economy, and they weren't growing together. But the mining has overall pushed everything up to a degree, and now we're seeing the financial sector come back. And now what you're seeing in Australia too is people really coming back to real estate as a very sound investment. They're looking at all these other options, and it's considered very, very strong. So
speaking of real estate, you gave me an example of a beach home in Newport Beach that might be going for about $1.5 million, not on the water, just one of the little junkers a couple streets away, say about $1.5 million in Australia with a very similar town. What does a property like that go for?
Well, when you say Australia, it's important. It's like saying if I talk to Australians, people say this to me. Well, when you're in America, what does real estate sell for?
Right.
And you can't compare Newport Beach to Detroit.
Yeah.
There's a significant difference as you go from state to state and areas to areas.
What would be a similar place in Australia?
So I would say, in my opinion, I would consider Sydney very similar to Newport. It's a high-end market. It's the biggest city, but I just think that's a very good comparable. And Sydney right now, that their prices have appreciated 20% in 6 months.
Wow. Incredible.
The example I was given was a duplex that very close to a friend of mine, and she's looking at her place and getting it valued and all this sort of thing, and it was listed on the market for $900,000 and it sold for $1.9 million. So that's exceptionally high over the list price.
Right.
And that's the sort of crazy thing that's now happening.
All right. Well, let's get down to the real deal and ask all these questions. We have a lot going on in Australia right now with investments, and we talked about the mining. We talked about real estate, financial services as a whole. What about mortgage companies? You had said something about in the past everybody would put down a minimum, I think, 35%, but that's changing now,
right?
That's
right. That has changed dramatically. People are now looking for less down, if they can get away with it, and back to 10% down is very common. So yeah, they're trying more and more to do higher loan to values.
Now, with the fact though that people have to put so much down over there, are they looking to bring money over here because it's more cost effective? They can buy.
They're also looking at price per pound and investment and extra dollars. So there's many different ways. Laws have been passed that encourage foreign investment here over the past 12 months. So what was difficult now becomes attractive. Now there's an opportunity to do that. For many people, it could be a second home or a vacation home. Now we can buy a place in the United States for, wait a minute, this is less than what I would be paying in Australia, and I've got all these other things. And the other benefit that they're looking at is if they rent it here, typically you're getting a much higher rental rate than what you would be in Australia. So that becomes attractive.
Now, what about the U.S. economy? Do you see any sort of a bubble here? Because we as well have gone up significantly in value.
Yes. That's a difficult question, really. I mean, I have. There are obviously concerns with the budget and the deficit and the balancing of that, and that's a concern that Australians have as they consider investing in the United States. But overall, I think that the US economy slowly but surely is on the way back.
Aaron, I'm going to ask you the same question, but we have to break here for a quick commercial. You're listening to Money Matters with Dino, and we're here every weekend afternoon. We can be reached at 949-720-1616. That's 949-720-1616, or you can check us out online at moneymatterswithdino.com. Stick with us. We'll be back right after the break.
"50 years ago, you didn't have any worries. You danced the night away. But the music slowed down. And now you have financial worries and woes you never thought you would be faced with in retirement.
I'm so afraid that my husband and I aren't going to be able to afford to live in our home.
Thousands of people have chosen to put a spring in their financial step by taking advantage of a government-insured reverse mortgage loan that turns the equity in your home into tax-free cash. You can use the cash for whatever you want. Pay off medical bills, credit cards, travel, and start to enjoy your retirement. Best of all, you still own your own home. Call now. Find out how you can qualify for a life without monthly mortgage payments. Call now, and we will send you a free DVD that will explain if a reverse mortgage is right for you. Call the number on your screen right now. No obligation, just education.
Welcome back to Money Matters with Dino. I'm your host, Dino Katsiametis, and I'm here to help you. If you have any questions at all, please give me a call. I'm at 949-720-1616. That's 949-720-1616. I also want to remind you, if you want to know the value of your home, we have a new service we're doing here, and it's absolutely free. Just pick up your phone and text the word appraisal and your address to 313131. That's text the word appraisal and your address to 313131. And I'm going to have one of my trusted advisors get back to you within 24 hours. All right, so we have two great guys here on today, Aaron Hodson, CEO of Harcourts USA, and Andrew Ritter, CEO of Own USA. And we've, during the break, we actually got into a really great discussion about what you call a recession. And just before break, we were talking about pulling the Band-Aid off. What the U.S. has done, right or wrong, or who knows, we're just three opinionated people here. But what we talked about during the break that I want to bring up is the fact that Australia, is it Australia and New Zealand or just Australia?
Just Australia. I don't know with New Zealand, but for what you talked about in New Zealand, that did not happen in Australia.
No.
Just didn't.
So they've actually never had a recession before. So just tell us why that is. Like how has all that been determined?
Well, I think when you talk about recession as an economy and a recession in housing, the housing market over these years really, and even the economy didn't happen. Mining, I think, we brought that up earlier. That's a big contributor to the factor, and then a lot of people have had that mentality of really wanting to have ownership in homes, and there wasn't a major catastrophe or catastrophic event that pushed it. Also, as I brought up on the break, the banks were very well stabilised and capitalised, and people had a high equity position, were forced to have high equity positions as it relates to the purchase of the home. So all those factors together really prevented that.
So let me ask you this, though, the high equity position of the home. Obviously, here in the States, we take a different approach, and I got to admit, if we told everybody here they got to have 20, 30%, I don't know if 70% of the current home buyers would actually ever have a home.
You wouldn't.
They wouldn't, right?
Yeah, I think there's a cultural difference as well. I mean, I sort of think back on the years, and putting a big deposit down on a home was a cultural thing that we were sort of taught growing up, and it was it was just the way that because that's I know there's always been that joke that we used our equity as an ATM machine for so many years here in the US, but in Australia that's where you saved your money. You put and in New Zealand was the same. You saved your money on your home, and there was also tax incentives to put more money down and pay off your mortgages. So there was encouragement from the government to reduce those.
So there's tax incentives to pay off your home.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
There's
interesting.
forced superannuation as well. There's it's interest, things that you pay on your interest, that type of thing. There's also forced superannuation, which is our retirement. You have to put 9% of your income. There were opportunities for you to put that into rental properties. That had to be cashed down, so you couldn't borrow against that type of thing. I mean, you can go into it in so much more detail, but there were incentives to make sure that you didn't own or owe 90% of the home value. You're having equity. I mean, I just think back when I was a kid, we were taught that's where your safety net was.
Sure.
The equity in your home was what you could always count on. So getting rid of your equity was never good. And even when you went to buy rental properties, I think about a couple of my friends that were mortgage lenders, make sure you maintain 20%. Make sure you got 20%. Don't spend it all, because that is your safety net.
So let me ask you this. Here in the States, I think the average time a person kept a home was probably 4 to 5 years. Yeah, I know it went up during the crash, I think, to like 9 years. Most likely, it's probably coming back down again. Do you know what the number is now?
It's still about the same. I mean, what we are seeing a bit more in the market now is the upgraders, taking advantage of the market, coming down, and actually, they're back into the equity stage of their home, so they are looking to upgrade, taking advantage of the fact that they can get so much more for their money. But those cycles are about the same.
What about in Australia, though? What's the average time in a home for somebody?
Yeah, it's about 5 years as well.
Oh,
it's
it
about
is?
the same, yeah.
So people actually do move around there.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know with my family being from Greece, same thing. First of all, you pay cash.
Yeah.
It's changed ever since it changed, and credit cards and everything else came about. They obviously have some financial problems now, but
just a couple.
But when it was all cash, everybody was fine and dandy with everything, right? And they all got along, but they all lived together too.
Yeah.
So I just assumed in Australia that people would not move around as much. Are there tax penalties and capital gains and stuff like that like we have here?
Those laws are reasonably light. I mean, I think capital gains kicks in after a year or 2 years. It kicks in if you sell within 1 or 2 years, but after that, it's your personal or your home residence is not subject to capital gains tax. So you're pretty free to do that as long as it's your permanent place of residence. Okay. But hey, most of them are 5 years. I mean, it's just Australia's such a big country with so few people in it. You kind of have to move to go somewhere. You can't just move up the street, and it is like 7 different countries. Yeah. And obviously with the mining booms and things like that in Western Australia, and to give you a perspective of it, it's like New York and California, Western Australia to Brisbane or Sydney. So it's you've got to pick up and move, and there's a lot of government incentives to get people to move to where the work is. Yep. It's a big country with very few people, so hence the reason the salaries are so high to get people to go over there. So.
We're going to get back to all these questions in a second, but I just can't help myself. I got to tell two quick little stories. So when I was in my early 20s, I went to Australia for a month, and I had a fantastic time. Highly recommend it. Love it. It actually is very much like Southern California, only they speak funny. But just like most people in the United States, they love the Australian accent. But what I found interesting was I'm over there, and I fell in love, for a little while. And I'm sitting there staring at her, and she's staring at me, and it was this just moment. It was so wonderful. And here, what she said to me? She goes, "I love your accent," which I found so funny. But I guess we have an accent to you guys.
Yeah, you do sound a bit strange. Yeah.
And then the other thing is you guys are crazy people. I traveled from Sydney up to the Great Barrier Reef and everything kind of in between, and in the outback, there was this one little, and it was set up for us Americans, I guess, because there's this one little like bar-like area with about 10 little cottage-like places to the side, and they got us up there. They put us in the back of a pickup and drove us around to the point where death really became a fear for that day for myself. And they took us up to the top of the hill just to watch the sunset and gave us a bunch of champagne. And you guys just do not stop. You guys are wild people.
We do that for the Americans.
You do that for the Americans. Well, I loved Australia. I highly recommend anybody that can go, make the time to go.
It's an opportunist country. And I mean, I think that's just the difference is you've got to, because we don't have a lot of safety nets, you don't have a lot of resource to fall back on from government assistance. I mean, it's there, but it doesn't get you anywhere. It just keeps you where you are. There's that real culture of you've got to do something special to make a name for yourself. And I think that, but having a smaller population, there's more opportunities.
Right.
I think that's what the difference is. And I've worked in some of the smallest populations and some of the largest, and you'll see that as a cultural difference. It's, I spent a long time in China, and it's the majority of the population, it's a survival mentality. You just got to get your piece. Whereas in Australia, there's a big piece to take, and it's just the brave that'll get it.
Got it. All right, well, let's get back to some of the questions. So, Andrew, you're coming here with an ungodly amount of money to buy real estate. Lately in the U.S., going green seems to be a big thing. Is that something that you guys even care about? Are you looking into that at all?
Oh, well, going green is the green technology and all that, and green building. That is important, and it's a factor that you take into consideration amongst many other factors. But it's not the primary factor that you're looking at when you're buying the property. You're looking at the location. You're looking at what can be done with this piece of real estate and what's going to add value to the property. Now, that could be one of those things, but there are other things that you're considering as well. So yes, you're considering, but it's not the primary.
It's not a primary factor.
Out, please make sure this is a green building. We're out looking at the property itself.
What about building? You can buy something that's perfectly done, and you don't have to do any renovations. You can do something that has a little bit of a remodel and fix up, or you can go out and buy a big piece of land or tear something down and just rebuild something brand new. Would you guys ever consider doing that?
Ground up development is considered, but it's a smaller consideration. It comes with higher risk, and investors take that with a higher level of risk, and so there has to be a very good argument to justify that risk. It's risk versus return, and very simply, in development is considered higher risk, particularly when you can buy, in many cases, assets for below replacement cost. So that becomes a very key point.
Got it.
Now, if there are situations where it's very well justified and you go into that without boring you, and then yes, then it's considered, but it's a smaller part of the equation, not the prominent.
Aaron, you probably know the answer to this, and I'm sure it's different with every country, but if a foreigner is trying to buy property in the U.S., how easy is it for them to get their money over here? And is that something that is simple as it is going to the bank and sending a wire in 24 hours it's here? Or is there a process?
Not quite. I mean, we wish it was. I must admit it's a lot easier now. I mean, there's obviously a whole lot of, how would you call them, like type of investment opportunities that have been agreed on between the two, the governments of different countries. I know Australia and the US has one. I know there are agreements with a lot of the Asian countries now to bring the money in. I mean, the deposits are a lot higher. The ability, I know for a fact that in Australia now you can borrow money against property that you have in Australia to purchase property outside of the country, and that's something that's hasn't been around for a long time. To encourage people to, you can use the assets from there. It's not quite that simple, but it's a lot easier than what it used to be. I mean, the reality of it is it's possible, but it's a lot of cash involved.
And how does the currency work? Everything, I'm assuming if you're buying here in the U.S., you got to buy with US dollars, right?
Yeah, US dollars. I think that's the other thing that we probably didn't touch on with Andrew is the economy. I suppose the exchange rate between Australia and the US now is so favourable to buy here. It's been $1 for $1 for a long time, or pretty close to it. And for many, many years we were so far below it. So the actual exchange rate to come here and purchase has been great.
Got it.
That's true.
Guys, I can't believe how fast an hour goes when a conversation's actually interesting. So I want to thank you guys for coming on the show today. Aaron Hodson, CEO of Harcourts USA, and Andrew Ritter, CEO of Own USA, straight from Australia. Thank you very much for being on the show. I appreciate it, both of you guys.
Okay. Thanks, Dina. A lot of fun.
Thank you.
If you had any questions at all about anything you've heard here today, please pick up the phone and call. The phone number is 949-720-1616. That's 949-720-1616. And as we always say here, from your estate to real estate, we're here to help. That includes everything, either what you heard here today, or if you have some legal questions or just some general real estate questions. If I don't know the answer, I will find one of my trusted advisors to give you the accurate and professional answer that you deserve. The phone number is 949-720-1616, or you can look us up online at moneymatterswithdino.com. I want to thank you all again for listening, and I want to remind you that next week our show is going to be absolutely fantastic with two very dynamic people that are going to be teaching us the mastery of structuring real estate deals for profit. Thanks again, and remember, wealth is created by taking informed risks. Your future is up to you. See you next week.